This week, I have more things that you can watch from the safety and comfort of your home. The first of which is a film called Resistance. And apparently there are a cajillion films called Resistance, but this one came out in 2020, very recently. But you can stream it already. And it is a biopic of Marcel Marceau, who is probably the most famous mime of all time. I, in college, once went to a party, and this might not be the classiest thing ever, but the party theme was dead celebrities, and I dressed in full mime paint as Marcel Marceau, and nobody else was dressed in costume to the level I was, which made for a very awkward party. What I didn't know until seeing this film, and I found very interesting, that Marcel Marceau was actually a member of the French Resistance during World War II and helped save thousands of children's lives by basically like ferrying them to safety and across the border and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Like, these are things I just did not realize. Unfortunately, I feel like the movie does not do his actual life that much service. There are certainly interesting parts, but Jesse Eisenberg plays Marcel Marceau, and I'm sorry, but his accent is terrible. Because I point of fact that I also did not realize that Marcel Marceau, born Marcel Mengel, is Jewish, or was Jewish. So he was a French Jew, and so Jesse Eisenberg is doing this weird, like, French, Yiddishy, but also just his regular accent, and it drops and it comes in and out. And then also his physical presence is not anywhere near. And obviously he's not a trained mime. Like, he doesn't have that physicality to his acting the way that some other performers do. And I thought in the beginning when he was performing, I was like, okay, well, maybe like this is him not having honed his talents yet. And by the end of the film, we'll see him be like this amazing, you know, mime who the world, you know, knew and all that stuff. And unfortunately, it wasn't just him developing. It was just like, he's not a great mime. It's really hard because I feel like that's such an important part to the physicality and the storytelling of Marcel Marceau. The rest of it plays out kind of like an average World War II film. It's tough to watch in quarantine right now just because you're like, okay, well, when this travesty is over, you know, this travesty that has no enemy because it's a virus, what world are we going to return to? You know, it just made me think of how, well, yeah, like there are still children in cages at the border. Like, is this kind of COVID fervor going to make us overlook or ignore that? Obviously, we should not be doing that, but it's just kind of shiny object syndrome. So that was kind of a bummer. Obviously, it's a bummer watching any sort of Nazi World War II Jewish escape film. There were some outstanding scenes in this, but then it's also like they felt disconnected from the fact that this is supposed to be Marcel Marceau's story. The other actors in it, Ed Harris has some brief time as George Patton. Clemence Poesy plays another member of the French Resistance. A German man whose name I cannot pronounce, Matthias Schweighofer. We'll go with Schweighofer. Plays a Nazi leader, Klaus Barbie, and he's actually, you know, his character's terrible, but he's excellent in this. But this isn't any of their films. This is Jesse Eisenberg and Marcel Marceau's film, and he has like some of the weakest parts. You know, another supporting, quote, supporting is generous because, again, I feel like these characters were really important to it. And maybe it wasn't supposed to be just about Marcel Marceau, but that seems like where it was going. He's certainly the thread that ties together. Bella Ramsey plays a young woman named Elspeth, who Marcel Marceau comes into contact with and saves, and you know, she's kind of there throughout his life. And I was like, why do I know this face? Who is this girl? Why is she such a good actress? It's Lyanna Mormont from Game of Thrones. So she is excellent in this. What a great actress. What like a budding, you know, future she's got. Like, I don't know. This is a tough one. I don't think I recommend it under the circumstances of shelter in place, quarantine, etc., just because I feel like you're going to get super bummed out. But even under regular circumstances, I don't think this is quite there yet. I hope that Marcel Marceau gets maybe the recognition and performance he deserves. Like, nothing against any of the people in this film. Again, there are a couple scenes that I was like, oh, these are really good, but it was not enough to carry the entire film. So I'm only going to give this 2.7 out of 5. And then just so you have something to watch this week, hopefully, that's a little bit better, I watched The Stranger on Netflix, which is a mini-series, special limited series type thing. I think it came out in early January. It stars Richard Armitage, Jennifer Saunders, Hannah John-Kamen, Siobhan Finneran, and Anthony Head, and it's based on a Harlan Coben book. And I feel like Harlan Coben is one of those authors who just has like 20 kajillion books out. Like, I call him an airport author in that he always seems to have something new on the shelves. Like, good for him for being a prolific writer. I feel like it's something like my dad would read, or like my mom possibly, but mostly my dad. Like this feels like a dad read. But the adaptation of it is not bad. You know, it's a crime thriller. It's set in the UK. It's set in like a kind of small town. You know, it's a bunch of interconnected stories, and basically this stranger shows up and starts wreaking havoc on people, and you're not quite sure how they're all connected. It does a pretty good job of weaving all the stories together. It's a little absurdist, but nothing too crazy. It's an 8-part series. You know, they're about an hour each. You need something to fill your day. There are worse ways to do it. Under the circumstances, I'd give it a 3.6 out of 5.